Hello, hello. Inspiration could sometimes come in the most strangest of places. I know that for a fact. I never saw myself reviewing action figures. Well, reviewing action figures ever again, because I kind of did give that a shot a few years ago. Didn't pan out as well as I thought it would. Gave that up. Never thought I was going to do it again. And yet, bam! Inspiration comes and hits me like a truck. Where did that come from? Of all things, it came from one of my card openings. If you've been watching my videos, you probably remember that WrestleMania card of Samoa Joe and Rey Mysterio and how I went in depth into it. And I spoke about how they produced a 2-pack of that match, which I thought was much better than the match itself, in all honesty. And it got me into thinking, yeah, maybe I should go back and try to give that review a try. I still needed to acquire that 2-pack though first, but managed to get it, and here it is. Yes, indeed, folks. It's the WrestleMania Moments WrestleMania 35 Elite 2-pack of Rey Mysterio and Samoa Joe. Now, before I review the figures themselves, before I review the packaging itself, I need to give a big thanks and a big shout out to the Wrestling Guy store. I managed to purchase this online, and then quite honestly, right now it's tough times. Right now, small businesses and independents, everything needs your help. Whether it's independent wrestling, independent wrestlers, whether it's other businesses that are away from the corporate structure, away from franchises, support your local restaurants, support your local independent contractors, wrestlers, and of course support your local businesses such as this such unique business as a Wrestling Guy store. In all honesty, I haven't seen another store in the Los Angeles area that's devoted entirely to pro wrestling. They have a website, and I will link it down on the description of this video. But you guys need to check him out. Please, you guys need to check him out. Buy anything from him. He needs your help right now. He brings in people. He brings in top wrestlers to do sign-ins every once in a while. I think most notably, last time he had like Sean Waltman, X-Pac, and he's had other big names as well come in. Kurt Angle came in as well, and yeah. So big shout out to the Wrestling Guy store. Thank you again for all the elite figures. It wasn't just this 2-pack, but this 2-pack was the inspiration. I'm like, yeah, let's go get it. I managed to get other figures, which will probably be reviewed at a later time. I'm not really pointing in anyone's general direction anywhere. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Anywho, and before I crack these figures open, crack open these figures. I don't want to infringe on anyone's copyright. That's why. Anywho, let's look at the packaging itself. Okay. So here is the packaging itself, and I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty great. It's pretty great. It's a bit simple. It's a bit simple design. I do like that the fact that right here you have their faces printed on this side, but on this side you actually have a screenshot of the match itself printed on. And despite how short it was, which was my biggest gripe about the match itself, and then you have stats in the back, and you actually have a description of the match itself where it says that Samoa Joe applied the coquina clutch and won in less than a minute. I can't really blame the design. It's kind of following like the logo of WrestleMania itself. It's kind of following that color scheme. They've done some 2-packs in which the color scheme is a lot better, like the Hardy Boys Brew 2-pack, which I don't own either. But I feel that they were trying to follow like kind of like the really, I hate to say bland, but yeah, that's kind of a bland color scheme, that they were trying to go for this WrestleMania logo. And I do not understand why they have taken away the WrestleMania numbering. WrestleMania was always known for having outlandish logos. Just look at the WrestleMania 16/2000 logo. And kind of replacing, or X7, X7, and then it's X8, and it's an actual number, X8. And they kind of just took away the whole, I think 31 was the first one to take away the numbering itself. There's no more Roman numerals, there's no more written numbers, there's no more standard numbers on it. and I don't understand why. They want you. I don't get it because they want you to keep track of which WrestleMania itself. But I'm not gonna lie to you. When they announced WrestleMania for Los Angeles, I thought we were getting 38 because it's been such a. We are. Wait, are we getting? No, we're getting 37. See that's how confusing it is nowadays. But enough about my rant for WrestleMania itself. The packaging is okay. It's passable. I guess you could. I know I should probably save these rants for other videos, but then again, I might not review another wrestling figure. Might go to not in the near future. I might jump around to other toy lines after this. But um, yeah, I never liked how Mattel kept changing their packaging. If you started out, since the beginning, back in like 2010 when the line started, the Elite figure packaging is way different than now as it was then. And it changed. It constantly kept changing. I know they went from that all black color scheme to kind of like this red, white, and yellow color scheme, and then they went to this kind of blue color scheme, and that just throws all the figures off. It really discourages people from collecting them and leaving them inside the packaging itself. Honestly, a good example of how a good line stayed consistent was just look at Classic Superstars by Jax. From their first series to their final series, which I think was in their the Classic Superstar series. I think one of their last series was already like in the 30s or something, or I don't know. I never collected Classic Superstars, but you look at that line and it was consistent. The packaging on the first one did not look that different from the packaging on later figures. And when it comes to Mattel, it's like no, these would not look in place with an Elite One, with an Elite One CM Punk or an Elite One Undertaker or what have you. Yeah, that's all I could say about the packaging itself. I do like the posing, even though it's kind of yeah, no, I kind of do like the posing. They're kind of looking like they're gonna lock up. And yeah, I guess it's time for me to open these figures up, and I'll give you a quick rundown of those figures right then and there. Now let's start off the review by reviewing the actual winner of the match, Samoa Joe. Now surprisingly, this is my very first Samoa Joe figure. I took a break from collecting wrestling figures, I want to say around the Elite series that had Harlem Heat, which I did not end up getting. I took a small break because I really was tired of seeing figures come out of certain characters, Adam Rose, um, Fandango, and just seeing them not being utilized as well by the WWE system. I'm not gonna lie, I wound up having more jobbers than actual legit stars. I would try from time to time to actually collect like the classic, like the Elite flashbacks, and it didn't. And I just realized, you know what? These names are good, but they're not big names, so I stopped collecting for a while. I got out of it. It seemed like Mattel itself was flooding the stores with all the product. So yeah, this is my first Samoa Joe figure. I missed out on the NXT version that was available at at certain select stores. I was tempted to buy it lots of times as well. I think it was the Conqueror. I think that's what they were calling it. And then he had his own Elite release. And to be quite honest with you, I'm kind of glad I skipped on those because I don't think the face scan would be as good as this one. I do believe that the True FX face scan that they recently inputted, like a few Elite Series backs, is actually paying dividends for Mattel itself. Like these figures' faces are amazing. There's certain figures I want to get back to and get whose face scans are just incredible. Just look at the Nia Jax figure from a few series backs that they released. Yeah, so I do believe that the faces are much more realistic. I know that was one of the bigger problems. That was one of the bigger problems with early Mattel, like the early series of Mattels. You would look at like John Morrison's face, and some proportions would look too cartoony. But this really looks like Joe. I really like what they did with his hair. His towel is actually a rubberized towel. It's not cloth. So, because sometimes Mattel does provide you with cloth accessories. One thing, and I guess I'm getting back to my original gripe. One thing that I do miss is the fact that a lot of clothing is now sculpted, and I'm pretty sure if this was 2010 Mattel, when they still hadn't jotted down like the cost of the figures themselves, this probably would have been like an actual cloth, kind of polyester or material shorts, like realistic, and I guess now that they know how much each figure would cost, how much each figure will sell, they're kind of like, oh, we're just gonna sculpt it, and that's fine as well. Now, being not being a an elite collector for a long time, I just realized that they implemented something which I'm very happy about, and that's interchangeable hands. And that's pretty darn cool. And here is Samoa Joe with his rocket power hands. Yeah, yeah, shaka bra. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of glad that Mattel went that way. It's kind of disappointing that how many Elite series, like, they're already up to like the late '60s, early '70s, and they only in the last few year and a half they started implementing these interchangeable hands, and oh well, it's all a part. It's all it's better. It's better now than never, I suppose. But you just look at how many figures have been released and how many figures would have benefited from having these interchangeable hands. And imagine Taker. I'm surprised. I'm surprised Taker still doesn't have the thumb to do the whole thumb across the throat. But I'm pretty sure they're gonna release an Ultimate Edition, which is more than an Elite series, and I'm pretty sure that's what they're gonna implement that thumb hand for. But yeah, and Hogan's gotten multiple figures, and Hogan has a lot of hand posing as well. Austin has a lot of hand posing. Imagine an Austin figure that could give you the finger. Oh man, that would be so awesome. And this figure is really awesome. It has your standard, obviously, your standard elite articulation. Biceps move up to the side, swivel right here, and obviously the head. Yeah, it's on a ball joint, but I guess the hair gets in the way, so you can't really look up that much. And he kind of could look down. Obviously, ab crunch, but his gut gets in the way. So I mean, it's Samoa Joe. He could be real mobile, but he doesn't. He's not gonna be like 1997 Rey Mysterio mobile. So. Oh, another thing I noticed is back in the day, Mattel would actually give you knee pads that could be removed, and I guess they started implementing the Cena knee pads on all these figures. I mean Cena in the sense that John Cena, and if I remember correctly, it was WrestleMania, the WrestleMania, like best of WrestleMania John Cena. I think that was the first John Cena to actually have sculpted on knee pads below like the jorts, and then I think that's a practice that they started implementing everywhere. There you go. There's a swivel right there on the boot. I'm glad. Double jointed knees. Single jointed elbows. Single jointed elbows. I guess they're saving up the double jointed elbows for the Ultimate Edition for all these figures. It doesn't really matter. That's standard Mattel. I wish they would have implemented the double jointed elbows, but what can you do, really? I really like this figure. I really like this figure for the mere fact that I kind of skipped out on all the previous Samoa Joe, so this is my favorite Samoa Joe by default. And I'm not disappointed. If this is the only Samoa Joe figure that I ever get, it captures a perfect moment in his career. It's a very broad figure. You could easily pass this off as a TNA Samoa Joe. Not many people would even bat an eye. And I guess because Samoa Joe has always had a unique look, and he hasn't strayed that far. It's not like he painted his face one time and looked ridiculous, but yeah. And now we're moving on to the next figure, so let's do it. Now here we are with the King of Mystery himself, Rey Mysterio, and look at this figure. Just
the paint applications on this figure is insane. Just look at that Aztec calendar right there that's printed. It's incredible. Just look at this cape. Just look at like this speckled kind of fish scale design that they did in order to simulate like a kind of shiny finish that his cape actually had. I barely noticed that his figure actually had some writing right here. It's if I'm reading it correctly, it says GOAT, greatest of all time, and at the bottom says Booyaka, obviously a reference to his theme song. And this is incredible. Obviously, if you're a fan of pop culture, you'll know that this costume in itself, it's a callback to Mysterio, the villain from Spider-Man Far From Home. And yeah, it's just a great figure. Let's remove the cape and see it for itself. I just like all the design on the figure itself. Just the lining is perfect. Oh man, you could see that if they made this 2-pack for any reason, it's just because they wanted to get this Rey Mysterio design out. It's just a great design all around. Look at this. Oh man, like it has an R and a crown right here, and then it has M and a question mark. It's just so much detail went into this figure, and you could tell. Articulation wise, standard, obviously elite articulation. It's kind of, whoa, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of hard right there, which is a shame. But this, yeah, this one moves a lot better. The head, once again, hair gets in the way. This mohawk doesn't prevents Ray from looking up too much, but he could look perfectly down. Ab crunch, and the ab crunch goes way more down than the Samoa Joe figure did. Same for the knees, they bend a lot better than the Samoa Joe figure, and it allows you to give Ray some much more dynamic posing. Now, yeah, let's see. He also came with his own pair of interchangeable hands. So let's apply those right now. And these hands, let's say that these hands are the ones I could simulate the same hands when I see Babe wearing a low cut top. See, look, you'll see what I mean right now. See, those are the same hands I would have when Babe has a low cut top on. Yeah. Anywho, yeah, this figure is great. Obviously, the hands are really meant for like kind of a grappling action pose, kind of ready to like spring for the ropes or just grapple down. Catch as catch can the opponent, even though that's not Ray's style. And yeah, I can't complain much about this figure itself. It's great. It's perfect. I'm pretty sure he was the reason why this 2-pack was created, and it's a good way to remind people of Rey Mysterio's contributions to wrestling itself. He had a unique style all his own ever since the beginning, and it's kind of fitting that the same guy that would wear like Spider-Man colors in his early attires would kind of in the twilight of his career be wearing one of Spider-Man's Nemesis colors that actually shares the same name with him. And yeah, like Ray is not no stranger to wearing superhero or supervillain colors to WrestleMania. He's been doing that since the beginning. If I remember correctly, his first attire was a Silver Surfer at WrestleMania 19. That hasn't been released by Mattel. And then for WrestleMania 20, he did get his Mattel figure, and obviously this is a Flash callback, and these Flash colors are incredible. This is early Mattel as well, and you could see that this Mattel would have sculpted on clothes, even that rubberized look. Whereas right now they just paint all the figures like that. But this is a great Flash Rey Mysterio figure. And he also had other looks. He had obviously the Dark Knight. He had the Dark Knight itself, and that's one thing. That's one request. Oh, and this Dark Knight figure actually has a cape, but that cape is safely stored right now, and I'm not gonna dig it out for the review. One figure though that I would really want would be to have the Joker Rey Mysterio from WrestleMania 25 when he beat JBL. Imagine that Joker Rey Mysterio with the wig. Imagine if that wig was actually material, not sculpted rubber. It would be incredible. Mattel should get on that. They should release it as an entrance grades, in my honest opinion. Yet there was one wrestler that did get Joker attire released by Mattel, and that's someone that you might not expect. Kofi Kingston. This is Kofi Kingston wearing Joker attire, and if I remember correctly, this is a Royal Rumble attire that he wore one time, and it's very cool. It's very memorable, and I'm glad that Mattel captured it in figure form. One of the harder superhero Rey Mysterio figures that was released of all things is the one. I think it's a best of WrestleMania Rey Mysterio figure, and that one's really hard to find now. Based off his Abada design, as Arnold Schwarzenegger would call it. Abada. Yeah, he dressed up as one of the aliens from Avatar. Was made into a figure, and even back in the day, that figure was already hard to find. Now imagine now, as there's so many elite wave lines, after so much exposure now, because I do think that was probably like the first best of series that they released at the time. And yeah, Rey Mysterio, who's to say that he won't be competing at a WrestleMania next year? I do believe that we might be seeing the twilight of his career. If that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that he wants to pass on the legacy. He wants to give a huge push to his son, who is now training under him. So if this is the last Rey Mysterio WrestleMania appearance, despite him losing in 1 minute, it just exemplifies what he was always all about. He was the underdog facing insurmountable odds and sometimes not coming out on top. And yeah, great figure, great paint deco, great designed, and hey, sculpted gold. You know, I got a little rant I have about sculpted gold, but we'll move on to the next conclusion of this review.
Overall, I do recommend this 2 pack of figures. If you're trying to get into wrestling figure collecting, this is a great start. And I do believe that the Wrestling Guy store still has a few more in stock, so get at it. And before I conclude this review, I gotta say something. Um, Gold plastic is pretty infamous depending on who you ask in the action figure and toy circles, depending on the toy line as well, because there's certain toy lines, especially vintage toy lines, that if the figure was casted with this gold kind of coloring, it's a death sentence. The best way I could describe it is that one day it'll be stable, the next it just completely breaks down due to the chemicals within within the paint and the plastic and the poly and whatever. It's really complicated. The point is, one day it could be solid, the next day it just boom crumbles, nothing, just dusted, completely gone. Yes, and guess what? I do have a couple of vintage figures from a toy line that might be afflicted. I haven't taken a good look at them, but I will. So watch me as the next review for this, I look at some of my Beast Wars action figures and see if they all suffer from the dreaded gold plastic syndrome. Later, guys. Peace and love.